Critical Thinking by Dr. Paul and Dr. Elder, The Thinking Framework. What do you think? Critical thinking is the style of thinking in which the thinker enhances the quality of his or her thinking. By expertly taking control of the structure inherent in thought and putting intellectual standards on them, regardless of the subject, substance, or difficulty. There are three components to the Dr. Paul and Dr. Elder framework. Number one, the elements of thought, the intellectual universal standards. Number three, the consistent application of the standards of thinking, the elements of thinking, results in the development of intellectual traits. According to Paul and Elder, students must understand two crucial components of thinking in order to learn how to improve their thinking. The parts or elements of the thinking are as follows, sometimes referred to as the wheel. All reasoning has a purpose. All reasoning is an attempt to figure something out, to settle some question, to solve some problem. All reasoning is based on assumptions. All reasoning is done from some point of view, and all reasoning is based on data, information, and evidence. All reasoning is expressed through and shaped by concepts and ideas. All reasoning contains inferences or interpretations by which we draw conclusions and give meaning to data. All reasoning leads somewhere or has some implications and consequences. The universal intellectual standards. The quality of reasoning is determined by the intellectual standards that apply to these components. Good critical thinking requires having a command of these standards. According to Paul and Elder, the ultimate objective is for the reasoning standards to be embedded in all thinking so that they can act as a guide to enhance reasoning skills. Clarity. Could you elaborate? Could you illustrate what you mean? Could you give an example? Accuracy. How could we check on that? How could we find out if that is true? How could we verify or test that? Precision. Could you be more specific? Could you give me more details? Could you be more exact? Relevance. How does this relate to the problem? Depth. What factors make this difficult? What are some of the complexities of this question, and what are some of the difficulties we need to deal with? Breadth. Do we need to look at this from another perspective? Do we need to consider another point of view? Logic. Does all this make sense together? Does your first paragraph fit in with your last one? Does what you say follow from the evidence? Significance. Is this the most important problem to consider? Is this the central idea to focus on? And which of these factors are most important? Fairness. Is my thinking justifiable in context? Am I taking into account the thinking of others? Is my purpose fair given the situation? Am I using my concepts in keeping the educated usage, or am I distorting them? Intellectual traits. When thinking norms are regularly applied to thinking elements, the intellectual qualities are developed over time. Intellectual humility. Intellectual courage. Intellectual empathy. Intellectual autonomy. Intellectual integrity. Intellectual perseverance. Confidence in reason. fair-mindedness, characteristics of a well-educated critical thinker, habitual utilization of the intellectual traits produce a well-cultivated critical thinker who is able to raise vital questions and problems, formulating them clearly and precisely. Gather and assess relevant information, using abstract ideas to interpret it effectively. Come to a well-reasoned conclusions and solutions, testing them against relevant criteria and standards. Think open-mindedly within alternative systems of thought, recognizing and assessing, as need be, their assumptions, implications, and practical consequences, and communicate effectively with others in figuring out solutions to complex problems. All this and more can be found in Miniature Guide to Critical Thinking Concepts and Tools,